Agent Everyman here with DBZD, doing comic book rewind for The-Rcollective. Today we're talking about Dreamwar.
Well, I really think that this could have been done a whole lot better. It's extremely disappointing.
I have to agree. My problems start right away in the first issue with it's just basically a merging of the DC and Wildstorm universes, and right away the Teen Titans just break out and act like supervillains and start attacking everybody, and everything kind of sets in play for the next issue, and it even gets to the end where there's this one kind of homoerotic scene with Superman and this boy in a trailer park where he's rubbing his face and talking to him, but you know, when you get into the next issue, it doesn't pick up from the scene, and the scene doesn't have any sort of instance anywhere else in the rest of the series. It's like it never happened.
And then, all of a sudden, issue 2, we start having character deaths. Not just character deaths, just pointless ones. Oh, look, we're going to kick Green Arrow in the head, and he's dead. And let's just clarify for something. It's modern Wildstorm versus Silver Age DC. We're talking about the Justice League, and with Green Arrow in his little pointy hat and his little mask, and he's wearing red gloves and all like this. The Teen Titans being the new Teen Titans, looking like they just formed. And it just does not fit. The only exception with the whole new DC is they have a panel with the Justice Society of America that has the current Starman in it, but all the others are quote unquote Silver Age Justice Society.
I look on to this the next book, book 3, and it just kind of starts going all over the place. You have the Legion of Superheroes running around acting like little childhood terrorists, killing people right and left, and getting killed right back like they're cannon fodder. It just doesn't really make any sense, so to speak, as far as the story is concerned. It's just all-out war between these two universes, and there's not even really so much as an explanation why. It just doesn't really work. I mean, it even gets to a point where it doesn't make any sense right here, where Green Lantern puts Batman into a construct form of a bullet and then shoots him in through a gun, a revolver, into the headquarters of the Authority.
Sorry. Wildcats.
Wildcats, you're right, I'm sorry. And it just doesn't make any sense to begin with. I mean, Batman, first off, just wouldn't agree with it. Secondly, you know, if they really were to do that, there's no need for him to make this huge construct of a gun. He could just pick him up in a bubble and drop him in there. I mean, it's not like Batman would really have a problem with that. It's so much simpler.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also Batman plus guns. They do not mix.
Yeah, and then you get into another character death. You see Dr. Fate performing an incantation when suddenly he just gets shot to death. And this, to me, just doesn't make sense, because this isn't, you know, the current 2011 Dr. Fate, who doesn't know what he's doing. This is the old Dr. Fate who's, you know, really had no problem with just about everything.
This is the Lord of Order. Dr. Fate, Kent Nelson, who's like, oh yeah, you do not mess with me. Oh look, I need to create a spell to do anything. Achoo! Oh, it's done.
Yeah, and issue 3 ends kind of tumultuously between a battle of Batman, where he ends up meeting his death in a pretty awkward way, which just doesn't fit. Personally, I mean, Batman might be outmatched with who he's fighting, but, you know, seeing all these characters die, and then suddenly someone has a problem when Batman dies, you know, you'd think that they may have had a problem with these people dying beforehand, you know, when the first person died, as opposed to the third or fourth character death.
Well, it's the thing is, and I'm not trying to back it up, give it credence or anything, but it does say these were soulless automatons based off of kill patrols.
Right.
And then they started developing the true personalities.
Right. In some way, it kind of makes sense, but it's still a fine line. I mean, you could make the argument where Superman finally realizes who he is in that moment of Batman's death, because Batman was, of course, his best friend, and that's sort of an emotional attachment. But you'd think, you know, they'd have less of an indifference between their other teammates' death as well. I mean, Green Arrow was still a close teammate with Superman, and he just says, "Oh well," basically, when Green Arrow dies, and it's not like him. You'd think they would kind of snap out of this earlier instead of letting it drag on and be this stupid little story. You know.
And then, of course, in number 4, Wonder Woman shows up. Okay, we're stopping fighting between these Amazons and vampires. Yeah, mythological versus mythological. No one really kills. They both know how to fight each other.
Yeah, and I mean, I get forward into, you know, chapter 5, and they make a distinction here where Majestic realizes who Superman is because he's actually spent some time in the DC universe. But then you skip ahead a little bit where now after they've brought all these supervillains into it to make it crazier because the superheroes are trying to stop all the fighting. They even bring out Doomsday, but yet Superman still has no idea who Doomsday is. And this was done in 2008, and
which I'm pointing back out that this is a Silver Age Superman, and Doomsday didn't show up until way later, until modern age.
Yeah, but it doesn't make the distinction, I think, between making all of the DC comic books characters, you know, Silver Age or not, because some of them still use some of the more modern costumes. You know, it kind of doesn't. It kind of leaves it unclear which ones are actually from which age. It makes it clear that some of them might actually be from Silver Age, but it never kind of says where they're all from, or, you know, if they're all from Silver Age. So it's a little convoluted in that sense. It just keeps going from there. I think there's so many bad jokes in here about, you know, some of the homosexual characters, you know, and it still just doesn't work. It's just kind of it's like it's trying to make a bad joke. It's like the whole thing is just supposed to be a bad joke.
And we have to admit, this whole comic series was a bad joke.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to the point where in issue 5, they put a Sun Eater on the moon in order to hatch. I'm trying to think what the plot line is here. Let me see if I can get it out. The person responsible for merging the two universes was doing it so that the DC heroes would kill off the Wildstorm heroes, because in the guy's mind, the Wildstorm heroes were bad guys because they killed people. So how does that really work? You know, having the good heroes kill off the bad heroes if the bad heroes were bad because they killed people. And then his whole goal with hatching the Sun Eater off the moon, while the whole point is to just destroy everything, but yet he wanted to make it better. His plan was to make the world better. But how does that work if you're going to kill everything? I mean, you could make the argument that the guy's just insane and doesn't know what he's doing, but it kind of just doesn't work as a story.
Yeah, it seemed like he was going, the only way to have peace is the single piece of the grave.
I think you're right there, yeah. I think that's what he was trying to say, but it just never came across that way.
And now issue 6. Issue 6 tried to summarize everything, wrap it up nicely, and it failed, but it gave me some points. The points that I gave it is because of some of these jokes in here. Like, I agree with you, Twilight.
Yeah, when they called Midnight Twilighter, you know, because he's homo, you know, it's kind of you know, a stab at the Twilight movies, I think, and I think it's kind of understood, and it kind of works there, and it makes it for a little comic relief, and it actually kind of makes the comic start to make a little bit more sense as far when you put it in par with everything else that's going on. Now that the characters are starting to come together and actually be the characters they're supposed to be. They even make jokes about how Superman is a Boy Scout and he's must be the oldest Boy Scout on the planet. But, you know, I mean, some of it's kind of tried and been done to a point where it's just kind of ridiculous now. And it's like the reader knows that Superman is a Boy Scout. It's what point is there in pointing that out anymore?
Yeah. And then at the end, guess what happens? The guy creating all this wakes up. This whole story, pointless.
It all ends out to just be a bad dream for everybody involved, and it's all over and done with.
Bob Newhart show anybody? Roseanne Barr writing out the book and saying, oh, yeah, this is what was going on. St. Elsewhere, it was all in a globe.
It's kind of like somebody came to their senses and realized this whole thing was a bad idea, so they just said, well, let's just throw in one little plot point to fix it all up. They woke up from a bad dream. The end.
Oh, and pointing out another bad idea to wrap up something. Norman Osborn's alive, and he was behind all the Clone Saga.
You know, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. The whole thing isn't a dream war; it's a nightmare war. The whole thing is just a terrible concept and just was not done properly. It didn't do justice to any of the characters, and it totally spat in the reader's face as far as trying to get whatever it wanted done.
Yet, for some odd reason, this is becoming popular. I've heard a lot of people trying to find all the issues because we don't know why. It might be because Wildstorm is about to merge completely with the mainstream DC because we know it's part of the 52.
Yeah.
But we've heard it's going to be something more.
Yeah, and the point is, what is it going to be? Is this how we introduce the DC characters to the Wildstorm characters? Because, you know, when they wake up from this dream, they realize, okay, now these DC characters were never real. You know, they didn't exist. And I mean, so now they know who we are, but the DC characters don't know who the Wildstorm characters are yet.
Well,
so to what extent are they going?
the DC characters know some Wildstorms.
True. Yeah.
Majestic for one.
Mm-hmm.
When the Challengers of the Unknown, who traversed all the 52, they met some of the Wildstorm people. That's like Donna Troy, Kyle Rayner,
Okay.
The Atom, Ray Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys know who these are. Captain Atom knew it because he went over there and blew up the Wildstorm universe to let it become the Wildstorm universe again.
Yeah, sort of retconning everything. Which, you know, I still don't know how they're going to work into everything, but, you know, we'll just have to see what DC has coming up.
I just have to say, not impressed. It could have been better, but it was more of a, hey, let's just have the Wildstorm people beat up the DC people.
Yeah, it seems to me like it was some fanboy's crazy wet dream where he was like, let's just see what happens when we do this and do it badly. Because they have all these characters who are just acting completely not like themselves, and it just seems like the entire point was just see how many people we could kill as fast as possible and go at it in all out battles.
Okay, I have to say, thumb down, and if I can turn my feet upside down, they'd be going down.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. This is definitely going on my top 10 worst list ever.
Well, this is Asian Everyman here with DBZD. This is our informal comic book rewind on Dreamwar. I hope you enjoyed it.
And I hope you give us a ring next week when we do a recent comic book rewind on Blackest Night.
For the R-Collective, this is Agent Everyman.
And DBZD.
Signing out.
До свидания.